Welcome back to Gold Fox Wealth. Let's talk money. At 38, you wake up on an ordinary Monday and realize that nobody anywhere actually needs you. And for 12 years, that exact thought had been the goal. You used to run it through your mind under the office fluorescence, half listening while your manager, Daniel, explained why the quarterly targets had been, in his words, recalibrated. It came to you on the video calls that could have been a two-line email, and on the Sunday nights when the week ahead loomed like a bill you could not pay. So you opened a spreadsheet and gave it a name, Freedom. Each month you handed it one more figure, your salary, your savings rate, your returns, your projected costs, the years you had left. And one cell at a time, the colors shifted from red to yellow to green, like a war map slowly reporting that the enemy had started to fall back. The paycheck said $190,000 a year. You lived like it said half that. The same gray sedan carried you around for 11 years. You brought lunch from home while the desks around you ordered sushi. Daniel upgraded to a bigger house, and your response was to raise your index fund contribution. Your friend Marcus leased a sports car, and your response was to work out what those payments would grow into after 20 years of compounding. Lena, your wife, liked to say you had stopped seeing price tags entirely. The truth was closer to this. Every restaurant check looked to you like a small theft from your future freedom. By 38, the accounts add up to $2.1 million. The mortgage has almost disappeared. According to the spreadsheet, your family can live on roughly $70,000 a year and never clock in again, assuming the market stays sane and you never develop a sudden craving for yachts. So on a Thursday, you quit. Daniel looks at you the way you might look at someone announcing they are off to join a monastery. Another company, he wants to know. You tell him no. A startup then? No again. He tips back in his chair, 46 years old and visibly tired, still convinced that one more promotion will make all that tiredness add up to something. So what will you actually do? He asks. You have practiced this answer for years, so you let yourself smile before you give it. Whatever you want. That first month is a jailbreak. You sleep in until 9. Coffee gets made slowly like a ritual. You wander the grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon and feel quietly superior to everyone speed walking the aisles in work clothes. Your former colleagues are off somewhere arguing about deadlines, while you take the long walk along the river. Slack comes off your phone. Every alarm gets switched off. You finish 3 books, pick up a little Italian, and hand 2 entire weeks to the garage, sorting it with the patience of an archaeologist brushing dust off a buried city. One afternoon, Marcus drops by and finds you out on the patio at 2 in the afternoon, shoes off, sipping sparkling water. This, he tells you, is the life. You agree with him. You even pull up the spreadsheet and point out that last year your investments out-earned plenty of full-time salaries. He shakes his head, genuinely impressed. Then he stands, glances at his watch, and says he has a client to get to. You watch him rush off to his car, hauling that old familiar urgency with him, the same urgency you spent years resenting. And for one strange moment, it does not look like a burden at all. It looks like importance. By month 3, Monday has quietly lost its edges. So has Friday. The weekend stops showing up entirely because nothing sets it apart anymore. Lena is still up at 6:30 for her hospital shift. Sophie, your daughter, still marches off to school under a backpack almost as big as she is. The front door clicks shut behind them at 8:15. After that, the house is nothing but silence. You had assumed that silence would land as peace. What it actually feels like is the world carrying on perfectly well without you in it. So you go hunting for things to do. You compare electricity providers line by line. You lose 40 minutes to the ideal temperature for a refrigerator. You drive clear across town to shave $6 off a printer ink cartridge. Then realize there is nothing left in your life you actually need to print. You eat lunch alone in a cafe, surrounded by retirees a solid 25 years your senior. One of them works through the newspaper. Two of them trade notes on knee replacements. And it dawns on you that you may have skipped straight past an entire chapter of your own life. Ask what you do these days, and you answer that you are retired. In the beginning, the word lands as a flex. Pretty soon, it starts coming out sounding like a defense. At Sophie's school fundraiser, a dad named Eric asks whether you sold a company. You walk him through it. A career in corporate finance, years of aggressive saving, steady investing, and eventually financial independence. So you are between things, he says. Not exactly, you tell him. You are retired. Eric goes quiet for a beat. At 38, he repeats, you nod. That is incredible, he says, except his face is doing something underneath the words. Confusion, maybe suspicion. He asks which projects you are working on these days. You mention that you have been reading more, getting to the gym, spending time with the family, and every time you recite the list, it somehow gets a little smaller. One evening, Lena catches you checking the accounts for the fourth time that day. The market has slipped 2.3%, so on paper, your portfolio just shed almost $50,000. This is ordinary volatility, you remind yourself. Your spreadsheet has survived far worse on screen, and yet you quietly kill the takeout order you were about to place and float the idea of leftovers instead. Lena watches you slide 2 containers into the microwave. We can afford dinner, she points out. You tell her you know. Then why, she asks, are you acting like you can't? The problem is that the spreadsheet stopped at retirement. It laid out in perfect detail how to get free of work. It said absolutely nothing about how to live once you were. Now every dollar you spend feels like prying a brick out of the wall standing between you and a job. You are financially free, and somehow each purchase still feels capable of shoving you backward, one step at a time, all the way to Daniel's office. 6 months out, the phone rings, and it is Daniel. He needs your read on a project. The call runs 23 minutes. You spot the issue almost instantly, talk him through a fix, and hear him tapping out notes on the other end. For 23 minutes, you matter again. Then the call ends, and you just sit there at the kitchen table, staring at the black screen of your phone. And you notice, with a small jolt, that part of you is hoping he calls back. What comes instead is a call from Marcus and a lunch invitation. He turns up late and apologetic, because a deal nearly blew up on him that morning. Over the table, he runs through his troubles. Difficult clients, difficult employees, a supplier who just jacked up his prices. But here is the part that stays with you. As he catalogs every disaster, he is lit up, angry, on edge, and completely alive inside his own life. You were right, he tells you. Work is a nightmare, and you nearly say the thing out loud. A nightmare is still a dream. At least something is happening in there. When the crisis finally lands, it arrives on a Wednesday morning with no soundtrack and no warning at all. You work out. You shower. You brew the coffee. You sit down at the kitchen table. 9 hours stretch out before Lena is home. The calendar is blank. The phone says nothing. The money is safe. You have pulled off precisely what you set out to do, and you cannot come up with a single reason to get out of the chair. For 12 years, you cast work as the villain of your story. What you never clocked was that the villain was also the thing holding the story upright. It handed you obstacles, allies, a rank, wins you could actually measure, and someone convenient to blame. Take it away, and you are not liberated. You are just undefined. That night, you admit to Lena that you think you got it wrong. She does not laugh, and she does not remind you that she saw it coming. She just sits down across from you and asks something far simpler. Did you retire, she asks, because you hated working? Or because you hated your job? And that single distinction cracks something wide open in you. You do not crawl back to Daniel's company. You are not about to hand your freedom back, just to build the same cell all over again. Instead, you start giving 2 days a week to a small local nonprofit, helping them rebuild their finances. The director, Maya, runs on far more passion than budget. with a filing system that looks like it has weathered a couple of natural disasters. She cannot really pay you, so the two of you settle on a symbolic salary of $1 a year. It is messy work. The meetings drag. Maya reshuffles the priorities without warning, and every so often you remember exactly what used to drive you crazy about having a job. But the place keeps families in their homes, and the week your new budgeting system frees up enough cash to cover 12 more households, that number lands harder than any green cell in the Freedom Spreadsheet ever did. You still answer to no boss, not in the old way. Your time is still your own. But now there is a reason to be somewhere on a Tuesday morning. People are counting on you. Problems sit and wait for you to show up. And when Sophie asks what you do, you stop reaching for the word retired. Instead, you tell her that you help people solve things. At 38, you were sure retirement meant turning the final page. You believed the reward for beating the game was never having to sit down and play it again. But financial independence was never who you were. It was only ever a tool, a blank key that could open almost any door you pointed it toward. The spreadsheet handed you enough money to walk away from work you couldn't stand. What it could never hand you was the answer to what deserved your time instead. That was never something you could calculate. That was simply your life. Thanks for watching. Please consider hitting like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Tell us in the comments what you'd like us to unpack next. See you in the next one.